Thanks for joining me in the studio this morning. Great to have you here. Could we start the conversation just, what is Inicio?
So Inicio AI is a B2B software company, and we have a platform that uses conversational AI to help end consumers complete detailed affordability assessments.
So when might they need that?
So there's loads of reasons that businesses need to understand what their customers can afford. That might be because the customer's in debt. It might be for new lending. It could be for retirement planning, to work out how much they should save. So lots of things like what can I afford as a human for different scenarios, and we help get the customer to that answer.
So how did the business start?
So it was a very sort of serendipitous set of circumstances, I guess. So I was working at a challenger bank doing a digital transformation, and I was introduced to the new technology of conversational AI. Now, this was about 5 years ago, so we'd not seen ChatGPT at that point, and it was pretty cool, and I was really impressed. But I was also super grumpy about chatbots at that point. So what I was seeing was chatbots being deployed to cut operational costs, predominantly for banks. And we've all had those experiences where you're happy to have a go at something digitally, but then when it falls over or you need some help, and you end up with a chatbot that just is seriously frustrating, you get lost in a loop. You want to speak to a human to get that help.
You are not a human.
Absolutely.
Yes, I am.
And if you swear at it, you might get referred to a human, so we all know the tricks to get out. So I was just really grumpy about that use case, and I said, unless there's a use case where a consumer would rather deal with the chatbot or a non-human, I don't
So
get
rather than
it.
driven from the financial services side of efficiencies, reducing headcount of call centres, driven by an actual choice.
A need.
It's
There's a real
better
need.
reason to have.
And so having been grumpy, one of my colleagues then had an interaction with a very heavily pregnant lady one night who was trying to commit suicide because she was in debt, unfortunately. And whilst he was waiting for the police to arrive to kind of help the lady from that situation, he was talking to her, and she explained that she'd got 5 debts with 5 companies, and they were all asking her to do an I&E. And I said,
what's an I&E?
What is an I&E? I had no idea. I'd never experienced one. And she explained that it's an income and expenditure form that, from a business perspective, if you've got a consumer that's in debt or behind on their payments, the first thing you need to understand is what is your affordability position? What money have you got coming in and going out? Because can you pay something? Can you pay nothing? Do we need to send you off for debt advice? What can we do for you? So that income and expenditure form is really critical as a start point. Now, there are digital forms out there, and she was being offered those, but she wasn't confident enough to try that on her own. So the only other help she was offered was speak to a human agent to get help over the phone. And she was so embarrassed about the situation that she got into. And she also thought that those agents might be judgmental about what she was perhaps spending her money on or what little she was earning, that she just couldn't face that as an option. And she thought that her only solution was something pretty drastic. So it was at that point the penny dropped for us that, okay, this is the use case. This is a person that really does want some help, but does not want it from a human.
And
so,
non-judgmental, safe space.
Yeah.
And the tech, I suppose the capabilities of conversational AI have come on.
Hugely, yeah, massively. And it's really interesting. I get invited on a lot of panels to talk about sort of AI and tech and how you do it safely and all that kind of stuff, especially in financial services. And I guess with this type of conversational AI, it either works if you do something very simple and very broad, so you can do a very basic sort of task, that's fine, but you get into any detail, it falls over. So the other scenario is you go on a very narrow topic, but you go very deep with the training of that data, and that's what we've done. So we only do the income and expenditure form. I don't do mortgage forms. I don't do any other application forms or anything. So we've trained our avatar, who is called Budgie, nice, friendly, non-judgmental type character.
Soft toys are available.
Yeah, we do have some actual budgies, which is very exciting. But it's Budgie that gently guides the customer through that task and gets them to engage. So we see about 30 to 40% of non-engaging customers, so customers that have been avoiding the organisation they owe money to, starting to engage because they really did want to fix it, but they just didn't have the media to engage to complete this first task.
And in this particular series of our Beyond the Capital, we've been looking at partnerships. Mm-hmm. And I presume partners then are really critical because no one needs an I&E form filling in unless there's someone at the end of it and some partnerships. And so how important have they been for developing your product and your journey?
Hugely, and on lots of different levels as well, because it's quite a it's a complex connected area around affordability. So we partner with companies to provide the service. So within our affordability assessment, there's also a benefits checker. So there's 23 billion in unclaimed benefits in the UK.
Wow.
So whilst the customer's doing that income and expenditure form, we're also checking, we're finding about 50% of people on average £300 to £400 benefits that they're not claiming, which is transformational for their debt. So that's one partner. We've got open banking partners that we use to try and gather information where customers will use that service. And then we partner with sort of the debt advice companies as well to pass people on. And then I guess the other one is the routes to market as well. So one of the things we see certainly in financial services is there is a challenge for large organisations to deal with fintechs because there's supposed to be a lot of regulation and, you know, these fintechs have got a small number of people, they've not been operating for 20 years. It's the whole nobody got fired for hiring IBM scenario is what causes issues for fintechs. Yeah. So one of the ways we've solved that is we partner with a company called WaveNet, who are a big cybersecurity and contact centre provider based in the West Midlands. And for them, we bring them new exciting technology, operating with AI. And for us, they give us a way to contract with large organisations that are nervous about dealing with a fintech because WaveNet are massive, they've got loads of experience, they've got lots of staff that can answer the calls 24/7 if there's issues with the tech at any point. Not that there ever is, obviously. But it's that sort of, you combine the infrastructure of a large, so they provide the call centres to DVLA, NHS, so there's trust and comfort in a large organisation, absolutely. And you get the very exciting new hot off the shelf latest technology, so you get both elements together.
And was that an easy one then? Because that sounds to me like there's still a disparity. You're still the new entrant, and they're just a different kind of incumbent. Is it different in the tech space for that partnering to happen?
I think all partnerships only work if there's value for both sides, and therefore that one was really powerful. It brought something huge to us, and it did absolutely deliver something for them as well in terms of being able to have conversations about the latest technology. So they work with a lot of financial services clients, and if they can be providing the latest stuff. I mean, we save the organisations we work with about 90% of their agent time, because instead of doing so some people won't engage, but then where people will engage, it's about a half hour to an hour phone call to do an income and expenditure form over the phone. So we take those agent costs out, so we're bringing a huge saving there.
So you're like a value add within their portfolio of clients.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's how they actively out there searching for...
Absolutely, yeah. So they introduce us
much more open door, I suppose.
Yeah, so we kind of sell it together. It's a joint proposition.
So was it happenstance then, or were you how did you choose WaveNet? How did they choose you?
So I think with any relationships, it's about it's the contacts and connections you make, and I think that's where sort of a lot of the organisers like Supertech have been great for us. You know, introducing us to other organisations, just having those conversations and understanding the challenges you each face is kind of that. So yeah, there was a common connection, and we just started to chat about what we did, what they did, and then it made sense to work together.
Takes a while though.
It didn't actually.
Did it not?
No, they were super fast. So I think, I think they grew from a very small organisation into a really big organisation now, but they've kept a lot of that mentality about fast moving.
They understand it's not that long ago.
So they were very fast paced, very efficient, and it was really quick to get in place actually.
And so those kind of partners are really supportive. again, amongst a plethora of others? What's it like in the context of a startup journey?
Yeah, I guess the other sort of broader partnerships that have been really useful for is the ones where they're trying to support the early stage companies. So I guess one of the first ones we went on an Edinburgh Uni AI accelerator, and that was very early in our journey, and that was phenomenal, just helping us navigate the things as an early stage company and start to grow. We then managed to secure a place on Morgan Stanley's Inclusive Ventures Labs, which was just taking us to that next level of sort of scale up. And again, there's so much support you need as an early stage company, and you just don't know where to go and get those things from. So those resources are really useful. And then I guess for us, because we're in the financial sector, some of the finance ones, so we've done TSB Labs was phenomenal, helping us understand how we might work with TSB. Barclays Rise, again, really helpful, how we might work with Barclays, but also more generically, how you raise money, those kind of things. And then most recently, we're working with BNP Paribas on their tech sprint, developing a new prototype for them, which they've really helped us push on and think how else our product can be used. So we've really moved on from thinking, well, it started in the debt space, and we're talking about propositions for sort of, first-time buyers. And actually, we've just done a session with, can I mention the Dudley Builders Society? I've got that one up now, haven't I? Can I mention Dudley?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, okay, so let me carry that on. So, and we've just spent some time this morning on a great session with Dudley Building Society, and we ended up talking about how it might also work to help people understand what they could save. So those partnerships of understanding the broader context and getting the support you need has been really powerful for us.
And where then, there's a lot going on, clearly. You've grown quite a bit, there's new members of staff coming in. Where do you see the business going, and where do you hope the rest of this year and beyond?
So I guess we've sort of gone from doing an early prototype of the product and learning things, and then launching the actual product. So we actually went fully live with the first paying customer last summer. So it's still quite
Big
recent
milestone
for us. Yeah, that was huge. And then we're at the point now where it's working, the results are phenomenal, and therefore we've got quite a lot of inbound inquiry, which is great. So it's now scaling. As you say, we've just recruited a number of people to the team. So it's how do we grow effectively and efficiently? And then it's how do we expand out, because there's loads of opportunities. What we've realised, we thought we were very niche, and we are, but there's so many use cases for that niche in terms of understanding affordability goes into, like I say, new lending, retirement planning, property tenant onboarding, savings.
So that same process of all the time needing an I&E bit, which is a very snapshot part of an overall transaction or point in someone's life, but not just around debt.
Yeah, absolutely. So and then it's the usual stuff in terms of growing and scaling a company. So the usual fun of the fundraising journey and growing out the team. And we don't have any premises at the moment. Well, we need to open premises. We all work remotely. Do we need an office? So all of that fun to come. But I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm not sure I'd have been brave enough to just be an entrepreneur and set up a business. But because I was so caught by the use case and seeing the technology, which is super cool, and seeing it really used for a great end result that also is exceptionally commercially viable. I'm chuffed to see where it goes.
Is that where you get your drive, your energy from? Like, when your support, how does that?
Yeah, I think I've an amazing board. I'm really lucky. They're super experienced and supportive, and the team's great. I've been able to bring in a lot of people I've worked with before, and then some new people, and I just think it's the impact of what we're doing. You can see the results, real life cases of consumers. There was a case I saw last week, a young couple, 22 years old with a baby. They were in £1,100 worth of debt, just didn't know how to get out of it. They were they just weren't earning enough to repay that. But whilst they were doing the income and expenditure form, we found them £340 worth of additional income. they can pay that debt off in 4 months now, and their lives will be changed, because so many of the people we talk to are 40 years old, and now that original very small debt is 40 odd thousand pounds, and they're never going to escape it. And it kind of gives me goosebumps that that young couple, if we can provide them with the right sort of help and support and training, which is sort of, you know, the broader solution that we'll introduce them to, we've changed their lives. And that sounds a little bit like, oh, grand, but it's true, really. And that's what keeps me going at the silly long hours of the startup world. But yeah, I'm loving it.
Oh, well, good for you. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio. It's been
Welcome.
fabulous.
Thank you.